What's up, everybody? This is Brody from Brody's Garage. Here I am in the garage. Today is August 17th, and this is episode 45. So, the day that episode 44 aired, stuff started falling into place. Like literally, I submitted the video, it uploaded, was online, and within like an hour, I received a phone call, and this whole like succession of really cool things started happening. I've been on the home stretch to get in the car, ready to take down to the DMV to get the VIN and the inspection and all that stuff and the paperwork and registration out of the way so that I can drive the car legally. So I'm gonna now let you dive in and follow along with me as we tick off all the boxes to get that to happen.
You can come out here, take off some moldings and try to cut it out. A few years ago,
Yeah.
my friend bought a whole crate, a whole pallet full.
And there it is. It honestly fits pretty good. It's not terrible. The only thing is up here in the corners, the stainless steel trim is lifted away from the rubber, or the rubber is sitting down in there, so I may have to tap this in a little bit, but not too bad. Well, this was a nice surprise. I got a phone call from Alan, who I've been trying to wrangle for about a week now to get over here. He's a very busy guy, and he said he would try to sneak me in. Well, today he called me and said, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods, and let's see if we can get this done. So boom, we got the front windshield in, and we have the back window glass in as well. Now, I did not have the little tabs that go in here, the clips that hold the stainless trim on, so I'm not sure if I can get those in with the glass in place or not. Regardless, I don't have the clips, so I'll have to order them. But either way, this is going to come back out at some point. It's temporary. I needed the glass in there to pass the inspection for the VIN. And you know what? Now I can actually continue on and maybe actually drive and enjoy the car for a little bit. Okay, I just got back from seeing my buddy Chapo. I went up there to have this little piece of stainless tubing welded together. This is a gas filler neck that goes from there down to the tank, and there's the old PVC pipe that I temporarily used as a means of getting fuel in there. And hopefully I wasn't cheating death too much. I know that you don't want to run gasoline through PVC for too long because it will eat away at the pipe, and I don't know, those chemicals might get in the fuel. I don't think we got that far. I probably only put less than 10 gallons through it. Anyway, this little piece of stainless began life as a U-bend. It was like this right here, and I just cut it once, flipped it over, and welded it on the other side. That's my TIG weld, by the way. I did that all by myself. And now let's just see if we can make it fit. There it is, my friends. Check out my awesome stainless steel gas filler neck. Ooh, ah, ooh, ah. I can't wait to put gas in it. I just finished connecting my two horns. I got the high and low note horns, just installed them, just crimped the last connector. Let's see if it works. I can now check horns off of my list. I can't begin to tell you how much of a pain in the ass the wipers have been in this car. These sort of cheap reproduction wiper blades. First of all, I ordered them and it said 62 to 67 Nova, 15 inch. I ordered them, okay, 15 inch. They came, the first time I ran these, boom, they're hitting up here because they're too long. So I don't know if it was because of that, but the splines and the shaft got stripped out from the wiper arm. This is supposed to be a spline fit. Well, the splines got worn out, so even though the mechanism was turning, this thing was stripped out, and so it wasn't in its correct clocking position. So it was moving independently of the shaft. So what I just did is I drilled this thing out and tapped it for an 832 screw, and I just got it in, and I just got the one side I think working, so here we go. Hey, you hear that little clunk clunk? The clunk clunk noise is where the inside wiper transmission arm is hitting the top of the air conditioning unit. It does say in the Detroit Speed Manual, when you install this inner wiper motor assembly, that you've got to bend the transmission arm, which I did, and then you're gonna have to cut off part of the plastic vent duct in the unit itself, which I did, but it's hitting actually on the top of the main housing. So I don't know if I got to relocate my vintage air or bend the rod more or take a plastic, grinder and carve out literally a whole channel in the top of the AC unit and re-plastic it in. But man, oh man, I feel like, I'm down to the wire here. Like the last two items on my list are wipers and emergency brake. And these wipers should have been a 10-second operation, like just pop the thing on and go. But no, fight me all the way. Let me see if I get the other side on and what it does. Well, of course, the passenger side was the same thing, stripped out. And guess what? I broke not one, but two of my 8-32 taps trying to get those threads in there. This has been the most, out of this entire car, the hardest, most difficult thing to do was these stupid wipers right here. But as of right now, fingers crossed, I think I got them both working. You son of a... Good morning, it's August 15th. I'm gonna start my day by assessing my parking brake situation. This is the brand new low-car handbrake assembly. And we have over here the two cables which go to the rear parking brakes. On my car, I have a Ford rear end and Ford style e-brakes. You can see right there is the lever. Right there is the lever that gets pulled backwards. So the cable has to come in through the back side here and then grab that cable and pull it back. As mentioned before, my rear end is different because the calipers are mounted on the front side of the rotor, which means the cable comes out the back side. Normally, the cable would come from the front of the car and come straight back into this bracket, which would be facing the other direction. But mine is a little bit more tricky. So the cable's got to come from behind here and wrap around and then get it to the front of the parking brake. Let's see if I can get this all sorted out here. So this is the end of the cable that attaches to the emergency brake on the rear axle. It's got to go through this clevis pin here, or clevis bracket, whatever you want to call this, which to me looks like I need to pull the cable all the way out of the housing and slide it through that little hole right there. Okay, so the first step is that cable has to be snaked through the clevis there. It's a kind of a tight angle to get through that little hole, but it goes through. I'm gonna pull it through now. All right, so the cable is through the clevis. Note that I had to take a screwdriver and kind of pry that to separate it just slightly to get this cable all the way in there, but it's in now. And so now I can feed it back through the housing. While I do that, I'm going to spray some of this blaster chain and cable lubricant in there because, man, on my throttle cable, it was super stiff until I did that. So let's throw some in. But first, coffee. So the next step is to get the cable in place here by placing the clevis end over the brake lever and feeding it through the cable housing. It's got to go through the lock nut and into the housing here. And that all has to be done kind of in the car. You put the housing in first with a nut, slide the cable into the housing, and then hook it over the clevis pin there. By the way, this is a handy little LED magnetic light that I picked up from Harbor Freight for like, I don't know, a few bucks. Pretty sweet little deal there. Okay, let's get the other side in and let's figure out where these cable housings need to go. I have a funny feeling I'll probably be pulling the drive shaft out and seeing if I can snake those cables tight up into the tunnel there. Okay, I'm under the car. The cables are connected at the back end and they are sort of loosely routed up here in the transmission tunnel. I don't see any problem with that. I can use some cable clamps and secure it to the underside of the tunnel, and I've got plenty of room for my drive shaft. The problem begins when we get up here past the drive shaft loop, and if you can see up in there, those 4 little spot welds, that's where my shifter is mounted on the tunnel. The only logical place to put the emergency brake handle is going to be directly behind that, where I've got that little bit of clearance above the drive shaft yoke. That's where I've got some space. As soon as you get past here, it starts getting tight, and I don't see any place where I could hang a lever down because it's going to be hitting the drive shaft, unless of course it was like way back there. So I've got to decide, am I going to keep my shifter where it is? I'm going to have to climb up on top and see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm just sort of thinking out loud here. So what's the ideal position for the parking brake handle? Well, obviously if I'm driving and I need to get to it quick, I want it to be right there, you know. So dead center right there. Obviously it's got to be clear of this if I'm ever in low gear. And I need to get to that. I got to make sure that I leave enough room for that to get up and away from the other knob. So it's got to be back here somewhere. Ideally centered on the tunnel because we want the cable to pull dead center. It could be offset slightly. And if it were offset, it'd be, you know, to my side. I also am thinking ahead for the center console. You know, I also want to have an armrest, a place to put my arm here when I'm driving. So the armrest would have to be, you know, something like this. You'd have to have a little bump that comes up back here. It wouldn't be obviously a very long bump because we got the handle coming up like this. So we have to have the bump somewhere back here. Got the handle here. Cup holders, you know, I definitely want a couple of cup holders when I'm driving. And so maybe the cup holders are up here, side by side, or staggered front to rear, or maybe they're somewhere over here. I got to have room for my knee though, so you know, maybe that's not ideal. And if this has to move forward and backwards, you know, not a lot of room for a cup in here, so logically we probably want those here. I also need to have room for a couple more AC vents, which I plan to put those in the console. Now I have a pair of matching rectangular ones like these, which are, you know, so wide, so that means my console face has to be, you know, almost as wide as this tunnel. It'd have to come like down here and down here and then come back, and we have a couple of cup holders there. So I don't know, as far as this e-brake handle and cable goes, I can't dig down too far into the tunnel because I'm hitting the drive shaft. Once we get back here a certain ways, the drive shaft moves away from the tunnel, so we have more clearance. So if this were to live on top of the tunnel like this, even if I mounted a couple brackets or made a bracket that raised it slightly, maybe even at an angle, pitched it back like this, and then carved out a little trench here in the tunnel for the cable and the bracket to move. And it's only got to move about 1.5 inches. I measured the travel. If you look at it there, this is the handle at its fully raised position. So you can see that the clevis moves forward about 1.5 inches from where it was at its full rest position. So it doesn't have to move very far. I just got to dig a trench in here and see how far or how deep I can get the cable down in there before it starts becoming a problem with the drive shaft. All right, I have made some preliminary marks on the tunnel where the lever must go through, and I'm going to get to cutting here in just a minute. But before I do, I wanted to make sure that I learned from a previous lesson and blocked off everything that could be damaged by flying, grinding debris. I have ruined 2 windshields in the past. I'm not going to do it again. Not to mention my nice steering wheel and dash and all that stuff. So it's like surgery in here. Let's get to cutting. All right, new day. And continuing on the parking brake installation, I have cut the hole in the tunnel here, marked off some holes for the mounting. Basically right there is the parking brake. You can see I fashioned 2 brackets for the rear that will bolt through, and I made some little riser steps there, and I welded some nuts to them for the front portion. That's to give the front a little bit of an incline. And I think that this parking brake mechanism that attaches to the cable would just barely tuck underneath that sheet metal and ride back the tunnel with clearance to the drive shaft. You can see I've got a little piece of cardboard on top of the drive shaft now, but there gets to be more and more room as you go back because of the pinion angle and the drive shaft angle. So I think we're going to be good. Let's get to cracking here. Okay, we are now under the car. I've got the wide angle lens on here, so it might look a little distorted. This is the bottom side of the parking brake. You can see the lever is in its extended position right now. So the handle is up and the lever is all the way forward. I had to lengthen this rod so that it would get past these nuts here, and clear them and sort of tuck right in behind them. So that's a brand new bolt that I had to use a die to cut new threads on. And there's that piece. Then you've got your cable adjuster and bracket right there. So the cable housings will come from the back and they will go into there. The cables will extend and lock in place here with this little clamp. And so right now I'm going to cut my cable housings to length. Let's do it. All right, there's where I marked the housing. I'm gonna go ahead and give myself an extra inch just for a little extra leeway. Boy, if only I could give myself an extra inch. Here we go. Okay, there's one. Okay, and so here is the final installation of the e-brake. I ditched the little pedestal things in favor of just making a bracket to fit across the tunnel like that. And we have 2 bolts in the rear and 2 bolts up front. And after Bruce did the adjustments on the actual brake back there, we got nice solid cable here with just about 3 clicks. You know, it's good and stiff. So functional parking brake, that was the final item on my checklist, and I think I'm ready to get out of here. Probably my favoriteest thing that I accomplished over the past couple days was I installed the wheel well opening molding trim. Man, what a difference. Just that little piece of, I don't know, polished stainless or aluminum or whatever it is, but this little lip right here, I just think sets off the car with the wheels so nicely. Front and rear, you just, tuck it up in there, clamp it down, get a few screws started, and then just kind of squeegee its way around and keep drilling and adding screws. It was while I was doing this, though, that I discovered that this tire, especially this driver's side, man, it was so close to the wheel opening here. So I spent quite a bit of time loosening up this, 4-link, I guess you'd call it, but more of a 3-link bar that goes right there and goes back there, and it's got a threaded adjustment on it. So I unscrewed it a little bit to move this wheel back a little bit. I'm just gonna have to take some measurements to make sure that both wheels are square and that the car is going down the road straight. So, but cosmetically, very happy with the decision to put those on there. One more look, there you go. Now, I don't know why I didn't think about it, but yesterday my friend Bruce Daniel came over here. He's a mechanic at Team Ford here in Las Vegas and is certified to perform the vehicle inspection. So he came over to actually check off all the things for the safety requirements, the lights, signals, wipers, blah, blah, blah. And while he was here, he helped me adjust the parking brake. And so thank you, Bruce. I don't know why I didn't think of grabbing the camera, but we were both kind of busy. I was in the car and he was down here. So you'll have to take my word for it. Anyway, thank you, Bruce, for coming by. And I'm happy to say at this point, I may just find a trailer and get this thing down to the DMV and get it checked off. There's just a couple little things I want to kind of tidy up first, but I'm pretty much there. And so I'm going to cut off this episode now, but tune back in because we're going to take this thing down to the DMV and see what they have to say about getting the old Nova, or I should say the new Nova, registered. Until then, take care.